trust company and tax and private client practitioner, joins us to bring a common sense approach to money in a world of total insanity. Let's welcome Tony D'Angelo.
All right, so he's become a lot more than what we had anticipated in the beginning. I mean, we thought we were going to talk about a few maybe financial things and talk about the state of the state in Connecticut, but man, he's become this incredible investigative reporter, and everybody is tuned in to hear Tony D. Tony, how are you, man?
How are you? And I am proud to be among you guys.
So you're digging some more. So the last couple of weeks you spent I'm sure an inordinate amount of time putting together information to share with everybody here on the radio, and it's amazing how many people have really been overwhelmed by some of the stuff that you've thrown out there, and you're going to continue to sort of take us down the road today, right?
Yes, I am. Where we were the last time, and again, these are things that. And thank you for providing this opportunity, for me to come. And as I started to look at things, other things piqued my curiosity, and I'm a cat lover. I've always had an oxymoronic cat-killing curiosity. So here we go. Right. Remember last time out, we talked about the hole, or the extensible hole that was created when Arthur House resigned as director of security for Connecticut, and 5 months later, a gentleman by the name of Jeffrey Brown comes in. No announcement, nothing whatsoever. There's just a 5-month gap, which kind of has me a little bit curious. And in this thing, and we talk about again, I'm still Lawrence D'Angelo's broken record son, Boston Consulting Group. And when they got to the game, they weren't this little ingenue that came in to help save the state. They have been around here. They're part of the big three with Bain and McKinsey. But the contract that was signed with the state by Boston Consulting, this is a contract. It's 16 pages. It was sent to me by a person in the Republican Party who is who is a member of the legislature. Just sent it out asking for more information. We need to know more. Well, we've got 16 pages here of small print. Is that not a place to start? I can't make this. This makes me so angry as a practitioner, as a person, as a citizen, as a business owner. I want to scream, Lee Elci, I really do. Boston Consulting Group has the right, if this has not been transferred yet, or it has been transferred, to 3.5 million Connecticut identities. It is right there. It is right on page 6 of the contract, and it's your date of birth, your name, your mother's maiden name, your motor vehicle operator's license number, your social security number. We all talk about identity theft. Well, here goes, guys. Employee identification number, employer taxpayer identification. I could go on. Alien registration number. I get so angry reading this, I can't even speak. And it goes on to say, without limiting the foregoing, confidential information shall also include any information that the state classifies as confidential or restricted. Okay.
Does it give a reason why they get access to that?
Well, yeah. It's all under the thing of we've got to have contact tracing. Now, contact tracing, again, I have my own feelings about contact tracing, as you know, but you don't need all that information. You could use a unique identifier number, like one of those computer passwords. X3725 went with X2297 or something like that.
Right.
But, listen, we've had major trust issues with Connecticut databases, since Adam and Eve, from crying out loud, and this is what we're now seeing. Now, I want to get very specific here, just a little bit technical, but it kind of plays to the present day. This is a violation. This is criminal under IRS code. This has been given the, shall we say, the authorities are now aware of this, because you don't play with this stuff. And just to show you how serious it is, take President Trump. You've had a number of dopey Congress people, and maybe that's a redundancy, but who have said, well, we demand your tax returns under Section 6103. Well, guys, read the section. You can't get it. And you can't get it because it takes a number of things. Those protections are there for a reason. When the government years back wanted to, when the state said, we're going to have income taxes, ain't that a cool idea? Send us information. Okay, but you're going to have to sign this agreement saying that you're only going to use it for quote-unquote purposes of tax administration. Yours truly here, the dopey guy you're talking to, was part of a case 10 years ago. You can look it up. It's on Freedom of Information, Milligan versus the state of Connecticut. I had my rear end beat by the state of Connecticut because I was asking for information for my girl, Patricia Milligan, and that, long since gone, wonderful lady. And I was saying I need estate information because she's not getting the right information that she needs for purposes of her taxes. Department of Revenue Services wouldn't give it to me. That is what's called a permissible disclosure by code. There's a number of permissible disclosures. You could run down the code and you could read them. This stuff happening with the state and BCS is not one of them. So I've actually autographed that case a couple of times and sent it out, which I'll do for anybody free of charge. But the interesting thing here is that, let's get back to President Trump for a moment. Cyrus Vance in New York went to Trump and said, give me your tax returns. And Trump says, no, it's federal law. I can't do it. Cyrus Vance tried to get him from his own tax department and couldn't do it. So what did Cyrus Vance do? Cyrus Vance had another claim. We're going to try to get Trump under a criminal thing. The case that's now before the Supreme Court with the Trump tax returns is not a 6103 case. It is a case of criminal, can we get his tax returns under a criminal statute? So that's how serious this stuff is. And I'll tell you, I'm like, I believe me, you may have to counsel me after this, but that's, between no one actually reading this thing and this thing actually going out, I mean, it's terrible. Now again, there's a lot of bodies here, in the legislature. We're overworked. Is there a thing with better management where we can have people looking at these things before we actually get into it? Biggest thing, which I certainly don't want to, overlook, is that this was all done under a cloak of secrecy. This agreement got out, and it's very clear that on this agreement there is a no public disclosure thing. So somebody got it from somewhere, but the fact is other people had it and other people didn't read it. That's actually my first at-bat, my friend. Your ball.
All right, so I guess I go back to so the idea is now they got all our information. They did it. What's the recourse then, I guess, Tony? I mean, I don't want somebody having my information if they don't get it. What, can I sue them? Can I?
If you will put it this way, Section 7216, I know I sound like a law professor. I am sorry, but read the criminal penalties. It's $5,000. The way I read them, I can't find a case where this has ever happened with a government, but it's $5,000 per occurrence. I mean, my guess is I don't think $1 will ever change hands.
Right.
But I do think that if people really understand here what's happened and start screaming and yelling about it, it goes a long way to, whatever you want to call it. Just I almost feel like laughing. Honest government.
All right, so is this something that they went into with their eyes open, or you think this is something that they...
There had to be enablers. This is the whole thing, because in the Milligan case, I was resoundingly lectured by the fact of, why and how data is protected and that sort of thing. So someone from a state agency, it wasn't like I think, Ned Lamont or Josh Cabali just went and, said, hey, give me the information. Oh, yeah, great. I mean, there had to be sign-offs. There had to be, because data and a bureaucracy doesn't just move without a bureaucrat saying, well, hey, it's, what about me? You've got to ask me before you move that data.
So Boston Consulting, not only did they get paid a couple $1 million to do...
On phase one, my friend.
Yeah, exactly. What? To do very little, really to do very little work here.
Yeah.
They've also got everybody's identification that they can essentially do pretty much whatever they want with, I guess.
Yeah, and
pretty good deal for them.
That is a concern. And I mean, if somebody is concerned about that, I say please consult your professional, because I've been to those restaurants and the restaurant got picked off, and have done the Form 14039 and that sort of thing. But I can't advise in specific situations. But oh boy, that's
all right. So you want to go to number 2, SEMA 4?
Let's go to number 2. Interesting that the whole Oak situation, Anne Lamont and the Oak, shall we say, the Oak entities, finally got the attention of one of our local newspapers, the Hartford Courant. And there was an interesting piece on Sunday about the fact that, we now have a governor who is married to a hedge fund magnate, and this has never happened before. And several curious things in that article. I mean, because basically what I've been doing is when we do pieces like this, it's like, hey, guys, the ball game's over here. This is the one you really need to be watching. They did interview Josh Caballi, or actually it was they did interview Josh Caballi on the SEMA 4 issue, which is something else entirely, which, we spoke about. But Max Rice, the governor's, I guess he's the spokesperson, and he said, oh, yeah, Josh was with Thermo Fisher, but that's the governor's way of just bringing talent into the state. When you start to hear explanations like that something has been done here that's terribly wrong, but it's for the good and the benefit of your all, there's a skunk in the closet. You just know it, because it's like, out of all the people in the world, you end up with this guy, okay? So all of that kind of being as it is. The SEMA 4 deal, which was the deal for the testing. Interesting thing that was in the article that I didn't know, the price is undisclosed. And the other thing was Ned Lamont comes out and tweets on June 1st and says, we have this deal for COVID testing with SEMA 4. Isn't life great? And I ragged him on that. I said, hey, Gov, I spent 9 hours the week before trying to ask some questions about some of your dealing. Now you just come right down Broadway into one of your wife's portfolio companies. That tweet came down like bang, unbelievable. But so I copied it. I had it because I know the way these guys play. I sent it to him again. But that all kind of being as it is, the Quran article said, well, upon knowing this, the government and his wife, the governor and his wife agreed to give all their profits to charity. Okay, upon knowing this, you guys don't talk. You go in one corner of the mansion, she goes in the other, and you never say a word. But the other thing is, let's understand for a second hedge fund profits, kids. SEMA 4 is not a public company. It doesn't pay a dividend like Exxon or Walmart or something like that. It is, quote unquote, a biotech kind of startup thing that is looking for public funding. So, question is, what's profit right now? Is how are we going to measure profit? Is profit when the thing goes public? Are you going to allocate a portion of your profits to charity from that deal? Now, of course, the other thing is you manage a partnership. You manage a hedge fund. Hedge funds have I haven't spent a lot of time in them, but the better the fund does, the better the managers do. So if the value of the fund increases, the manager's fee increases. It has nothing to do with SEMA 4. Then the other thing, the Hartford Courant article said, well, it's Oak HCFT. No, it's the Lamont, the Lamont's kid. Follow the bouncing ball. What about Oak HCFT Partners 3? No mention of that. No mention of that in this, porous ethics agreement. That happens to be the one in the Cayman Islands. So it's like the harder you try, the deeper you get into.
So does that mean that if they didn't take any, they don't have to take any profits from something like this? until after he's out of office, and they can take whatever they want? Is that something
Well,
as simple
that's
as that?
certainly a possibility. But I mean, I think with the whole, as they say in the Hebrew, the mishigas of what is, hedge fund profit. Kindly define profits and kindly define what Oak Fund the SEMA 4 shares are in. We're not even talking about Thermo Fisher,
Right.
or Jackson Labs, or on and on we go. But I had a really good discussion this week with Sister Ernestine Holloway about about like quote unquote racism and opportunity and things like that. And I said, Ernestine, it really comes down to, in a state like we live in, a weird state, in the sense that we're so different from everybody else. It's like there's two classes of people. There's the elite, and their enablers, and there's everybody else. And this is what we're seeing over on the other side of the fence, Lee Elci. It's absolutely unbelievable.
Tony D'Angelo breaking it down for us today again, giving him a little extra time. He's done this now a couple weeks in a row, sort of to go through all these different steps. He's really done an incredible amount of research. And, Tony, I don't want to run out of time, so you want to...
Oh, you want to talk about racketeering?
Yeah, you want to talk about racketeering?
Talk about racketeering, yeah. This is what happens when you watched Channel 9 as a kid and you watched the old Republic serials like Time Smashers and things like that. Remember the whole deal as far as the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development having disaster loans for businesses that needed them. We talked about it on this show.
Sure.
The DECD burned down, couldn't handle it. So let me see. I believe it was April 18th. There was an announcement that the DECD had formed a partnership with SoFi Financial, a leading online personal finance company, and Equifax, I'm reading from their release, a global data analytics and technology company to, quote-unquote, give loans to distressed business people. Now you say to yourself, hey, how wonderful, the state has rushed in, they have helped these business people. And the problem is, when you look at that and you think, well, these are companies, SoFi and Equifax, they're not, quote-unquote, Lamont companies or Oak companies. Okay, but what about a company called Ocrolus? It's almost like, Citizen Kane, Orson Welles, Rosebud, Ocrolus. Ocrolus is a major financial document e-reader, and SoFi is their biggest customer. Now, Oak made a $24 million investment in Ocrolus in July of 2019. So basically, the more business that SoFi is getting, the more Oak is getting because Ocrolus is selling to SoFi. Now, Equifax, we all know about Equifax, and it's the same, kind of thing. Doesn't this look pristine? Isn't this a wonderful thing? Let's look at Urginet. Urginet signed a similar deal with Oak, and Urginet is providing those particular services to Equifax. So this ethics opinion, which practically I think now the longer I get into it, the Lamonts wrote for themselves. Of course, because we never mention Oak HCF3 Partners 3 in this particular thing, the one that ended up in the Cayman Islands a month later. And the thing is, it's almost to the point, Lee Elci, where I can go back and look at any single thing that these people are interested in and trace it to something. It's, when are we going to have honest government? That's all I've ever asked as a citizen, as a business person, and the saga continues.
Well, listen, Tony, amazing stuff as always. We appreciate your hard work and diligence, and I got to run because I'm out of time, but thank you, and I'll talk to you next week.
Okay, and best to everyone.
All right, buddy. Tony D. There you go. Once again, going through a whole number of different topics and facets. This is incredible stuff. All right, we got to take a break. We'll come back.